Hi, everyone, and welcome to another exciting comics loving edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted to be joined on this episode by someone who I think shares both a beard with me as well as a pair of headphones. It looks like we have very similar vibes going on here. The glasses might also be like a brand. I'm not sure. Uh,
No, I need to shave. I'm very it gets a little thicker, but I it does not get much thicker than this. So I'm certainly due for a shave.
I live in the mountains, so this is about the almost the year-round thing until I get tired of it. But I should say your name because I've talked about our attributes in common, but I haven't said welcome, Jordan Alsaqa. Welcome. Thank you for
Thank you for
jumping
having
in.
me. Yeah.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I know you from Welderkin. Velderkin. Did I say that correctly?
Welderkin, yeah, that's
Yep.
that feels like a pull at this point. It's been so long.
It lives, these titles live forever now on the internet, though, and with
Yeah.
Comixology and different spaces to grab things. So I'm glad to talk about that series. Glad to talk about Cooking with Monsters, which is the more recent one. I think it just come out? Is that right? Just a few weeks ago?
Just yeah, 3 weeks ago as of tomorrow. So still pretty new.
Absolutely, absolutely. So glad to share about Cooking with Monsters, as well as anything else that you'd like to talk about on the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So curious about the draw to comics, what it is about this world of comics that is special and unique for you.
Comics, I like to say I stumbled backwards into it over the course of like 15, 20 years. Because as a kid, I got into comics with Sonic the Hedgehog, the Archie series, and read them pretty regularly. I got pulled in more and more, like by Runaways pulled me into Big Two stuff. I
Hmm.
read when I got
Hmm.
to college. I started. That was around the time of the New 52, so that kind of like restarted me being able to just buy too many books a month. Um, but I didn't even know it's weird because I started writing fan fiction in like seventh grade, and then I did NaNoWriMo in high school and wrote very bad novel drafts. But I didn't really know I wanted to do writing until probably my junior year of college when it came to actually picking what I wanted or started to look at what I wanted to major in.
Hmm.
Before that, I'd wanted to be a dentist and I'd wanted to be a lawyer. But then I was like, yeah, I'll major in creative writing. And even then, I didn't like I was still reading comics and I loved comics and I loved all the things that I had written fan fiction about as a kid. And even still, I was like, oh, I'll do prose because that's the thing or that's how I saw it. Where it was like, yeah, I'll be a novelist. That's where the money. That's where the money is. Um, but I never I wrote some stuff I'm still happy with, but I was never big on prose. And then by the time I graduated, I had a degree. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and it still took like a year after that. I was tutoring at a community college, and I had a friend who worked at the school paper who did like the political. I don't know if they were political, but he did the cartoons for our paper, and he was putting together comics anthology, and he knew I liked comics generally. He asked if I wanted to write a script, um, and I did. The anthology didn't go anywhere, but that ended up becoming Terminal Protocol, which was the first thing I ever had published through Kickstarter. And
Hmm.
then around, yeah, about a year after I graduated college in 2014, I decided, let me make a go of this. And here it is 9 years later, and my first OGN is out. And so, yeah, I've always loved comics, but it just sort of happened. It felt like I was always getting closer to it without realizing it before
Hmm.
I finally landed that this is the thing. This is how I want to write. This is how I want to tell stories.
I love that. So you're kind of in the circling pattern and then said, okay, this is the thing.
Yeah, took a while, but got
Yeah.
there.
So I'm curious about what the collaborative process is like for you, because you've worked with a couple of different artists between the projects that you've been on, and also curious about this linking to cooking as part of the storytelling sort of fascination as well.
Okay. I well, generally with collaborate, I mean that's the thing, right? That's what I love about comics is the collaboration. It's not telling a story in a vacuum and trying to figure out is this good? I mean, I have a lot of I've gotten better, but I had a lot of self-doubt about my storytelling skills and being like, is this working? Who am I writing for? Um, and also that the thing I didn't like about prose was it was the final version. It's what people are going to read. I like the distance in comics of what I my final draft is still just a working document. The
Hmm.
dialogue is going to probably be there, and that might get tweaked as we go. But I like that it is a an art medium, and so much can come through on the artist side. Um, and as far as collaboration, I just like working with artists and telling the sort of stories that I think they want to tell. I think for my earliest stuff, I wrote scripts. I wrote a lot of scripts just my first couple of years before I had anything in production where I was just like, I'd write entire miniseries just to get the feel for it.
Hmm.
And so some of my earliest stuff, like Terminal Protocol, were things where I would have a very specific script, and I went online and I found in that case Rem Brew as the artist. And but the thing that I really liked is the reason I picked Rem, other than the fact that he's a great artist, is when he saw the script or saw the idea, he immediately had concepts and ideas on how to expand stuff and the ways we could present ideas. And that's really what excited me about it. And so there are still times where I will have a very specific idea that I want to do. But for the most part, if I'm going to approach an artist, I try to go, okay, what kind of stories did they want to tell? What does it seem like their
Hmm.
portfolio is full of? And if they're interested in collaborating, I will generally try to send 3 or 4 ideas. I want to circle on something that is going to be the most exciting to them. I've had collaborations where in my head I was like, oh, here's the story. I would love it if they like, but sometimes they pick something different. And I have ideas that I've pitched many times over the years that still haven't happened, but the ideas that do happen have that passion because as the writer, as the person instigating a project, you're the one putting up, page rates and trying to get it going, and you have
Hmm.
to accept they're not necessarily going to be as into the idea as I am. It and I think until you get a pickup or until you get further on, it is just going to be a job. But I try to be like, even if that is the case, I want them to love what they're working on, at least
Hmm.
abstractly, because it's going to be more fun for them. And that's just always been my philosophy as much as possible to be like, here's what I think would really work. Now, sometimes I will go to an artist with a specific idea. Like I have a pitch I'm developing right now where I was like, no, I think you would be the right artist for this. But it is someone I've worked with before where from the story we told there, I'm like, I think you'll like this. And they did like it. So it worked that way. But generally when I'm approaching someone new, I just think you wanna it's about building the relationship for me. And I want to make sure everyone
Hmm.
is coming into it with as much passion and as excitement as possible. That was the case with Cooking with Monsters, where I pitched several ideas to Vivian Truong, who's my co-creator and the artist. And what became Cooking with Monsters is the idea she connected to because of the monsters, because of the cooking element, because it is I mean, food is universal.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's the thing, like everyone's got to eat, and every culture has so much of food is tied to culture. It's so important, regardless of where you're from, usually. And so it's just made for a very vibrant entry point to a fantasy world. Fantasy's not a genre I'm super into most of the time, particularly high fantasy, just because I it gets a little esoteric if it's too, I think, not necessarily serious, but just I like a little more magical, mystical energy. So I do
Hmm.
like that. I don't
Hmm.
know. It's just, but when I approach this one, I'd be like, okay, what's a fantasy story I'd want to tell that I would want to read?
Hmm.
And food, I think, is just again, it's a universal in. It makes it something like everyone has tried to cook something or has a favorite meal or maybe has been to the grocery store and they're sold out of the thing you want to make.
Right,
So
right.
you have to pivot. Um, and I don't know. Again, the original idea for cooking came out of teppanyaki restaurants where they make the food table side and they have all the tricks, and that just seemed like it'd be fun if those chefs had to fight the monsters. Like it would be. And the original idea for the book was a lot more of a like almost stage show performance art type of thing, and there's still some of that in the book, but
Hmm. Hmm.
it became a bit more general. It became something that again through developing with Vivian, where we ping ponged ideas back and forth and built the characters and the cuisines as close to real world analogs as we could because again cuisine is so culturally tied. We didn't want it to just be generically, oh, these characters are Asian, oh, these characters are Arab. Like we wanted to
Hmm.
be very
Hmm.
specific, because the cuisines are very specific, and Vivian and I pulled on that for our main and side characters as much as we could. So it's just, I mean, that's collaboration to me. Is I have no I have no real what's the word, um my ideas aren't sacred to me. Like I will
Hmm. Hmm.
change stuff because I think if it's not working, I try to write the artist as the first audience.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so if they're enjoying it, we're having a good time. If they have ideas or changes, then I tend to just want to make those changes because I think I'm just not precious about my stuff. I don't think. So yeah,
I love that. I think that's a line worth quoting. The artist is the first audience. And I was going to say, it sounds like it was very much a collaborative process. So it's really cool that you work that way with an artist, because I know sometimes it's kind of siloed and someone writes and you might not necessarily meet or talk to the person, and then you get to see what they do with it. So very cool that it was interwoven in that way, and also just a cool concept. I've read books that are kind of like the straight look at foods across cultures, and then I've read books that are more monster centered. I don't know if Cage used the right word there, or if there's a specific term, but this really kind of hybridizes. It brings those ideas together in a really interesting way and entertaining way, and then Vivian has this beautiful style to it as well.
yeah, Vivian. I mean, I've been extremely lucky. I've worked with a lot of great artists, but Vivian specifically has such a talent for, like I've reread the book obviously even this month, and even after having seen it dozens of times through the process, I'm still catching details or background jokes that she has put in.
Mm.
Um, like so much of the breath of life in the world comes from just stuff she made up off the cuff as we were producing it, and that's fed back into each other. I mean, we have a Discord, we spit ideas back and forth all the time as we've continued to work on the sequels, and it's just been um, extremely rewarding because like we have a very good rapport.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you said there are sequels, so I was going to ask about next steps, but that sounds like a good place to say it. So this is a spanning arc series, hopefully, if all things go according to plan.
Yeah, we are contracted to do a trilogy, so we've been working on those the
Fantastic.
past couple of years. Um, our hope, we want it to be, obviously we want it to be successful just in and of itself. Like we want to find an audience, but uh, what started as a like mini series idea became an OGN, became a trilogy, became
Hmm.
something
Hmm.
where we could just keep making it. Like right, and maybe I mean give it a few years. And there have been times where when I've because I've written it in such a short period where I haven't wanted to look at it for like a month because I'm just so sick of working on it. But when I come back after that month, I'm re-energized and I still want to do the future ideas we have. So we've got, I think the first book is still very self-contained. We wanted it to be like that's how we originally wrote it. We rewrote it to start setting things up more, but the story there was just something we worked on for like 5 6 years of development time before it got picked
Hmm.
up.
Hmm.
And so we were able to write the sequels a bit more interconnected and kind of have a single story that expands throughout this whole trilogy. But even then, we're hopefully interlacing things that aren't um, like be all end alls that you have to know the answer to, but things that we could
Hmm.
pick up on if we get to do book 4 5 6, however many they want us to do. It's a weird time right now because obviously the industry's always changing.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and IDW has been a great publisher, but they've obviously had a rough year in terms of like restructuring. So we're always just like, we're just going to keep making the best book we can, and hope that it finds an audience so that they keep asking us to make more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love a series book from the reader side, but also from the teacher side, thinking about getting readers connected and then reading more and reading more. So, love that there's a sort of a spanning arc. So that sort of answers the question of at least what's immediately next in the creative journey, but any other creative visions that you'd like to share? Anything else that is sort of out there on the horizon for you that you'd like to try to craft in the near or distant future?
Yeah. The biggest things I've got, I mean, cooking is the biggest thing. Like it's my OGN debut. It is I think the biggest thing I've worked on by a mile. Just even the first book is 252 pages, so
Mm-hmm,
um, kind of dwarfs anything else I've done. But I also write Bullet Adventures for Altruist Comics, which is a it's a weird situation because it's work for hire, but it's sort of a one man publishing operation run by Randy Stone. And he had this idea a decade ago for a speedster superhero. He had me come on and like rewrite, and we collaborated and made a new version of this one shot story. And then he's kind of kept it going, where we follow the next generation of this character through her high school trials and tribulations as a teenage speedster. It's very much in the vein of I was most directly quote the 90s Spider Girl series. That's one
mm-hmm,
of the
mm-hmm.
big touchstones. But also Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, Runaways. Like these are the books I pull from because I love teen superheroes. And it is 4 issues. They've all been kickstarted. I'm in awe of Randy because indie superhero stuff is a very hard sell on Kickstarter. But we are managing to continue to bring it out. We are currently planned through at least issue 8. And even literally right now as we're talking, we have a crossover with Marco Stack's character, the Relentless Lark, called The Relentless Adventure, that is on Kickstarter, and is hopefully like it's in its last 18 hours or so. We're like 5% away from the funding goal, so I think we're gonna make it, but it's always you never know with Kickstarter.
Mhm, mhm.
But we're really proud of the work there, so that continues to be something I work on. I have some other stuff that is still under NDA, but I have more books coming. I have a lot of pitches in development, and I've started to do some more work for hire. I have next month. It is not comics, but I wrote the lore entries for the Apex Legends cookbook.
Oh, love it, love
Um,
it. Yeah.
yeah, which was a lot of fun. It was a very different creative muscle. Like I knew licensed cookbooks existed, but I didn't think about it as a writing job until the opportunity came up, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting.
Hmm,
And it
hmm.
was a very different process, but it was a lot of fun. And fortunately, that went well enough that there's more stuff I've coming in the future on that track as well. Um, but yeah, my hope is that I just keep successfully pitching books. I'd like to. One of my hopes, again, I want cooking to be successful on its own because I'm extremely proud of the work.
Hmm,
But I'm
hmm.
hoping, it's my big debut. I hope that it can lead to more eyes on my work, getting to do more work for hire, getting to work on some IP stuff, just because ultimately I want to be making my stories that, I own as much as possible. But I really like the challenge of doing IP work and figuring out how to work and working within those confines. I think every creator is different. I had some friends that swore by it, some friends that hate the process. And I get it because it is a very different skill set to be able to work with very strict notes. And different licensors are very different in terms of how much they care about the way you portray stuff. Um, but it's also nice having work that I do care about, obviously, because I want it to be good work. I want to be able to be proud of it, but it doesn't have like a piece of me me in
Right.
it to the way something I've created is. And it's yeah. So those are the things I have coming up. I've it's a pretty busy schedule. I'm always looking out for more, but I feel good about where I'm at. It's been a long road to get here, but I'm feeling pretty confident about my career, hopefully continuing to rise.
Sending the good vibes for that, and it's great to hear the range that you're working in, the things that you're trying out, and also really interesting to hear. Just I know the slog of what it must be to create an OGN. I mean, 200, you said 255 pages. Um, and so I know that was an immersive experience and takes love, takes dedication. And as you said, it takes a big piece of who you are to put into the
Yeah.
book as well.
Yeah. And so I love doing it. It's just you come out the other side very tired, ready for a
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.
So having variety is good for that reason too, because if I had to just write the same thing over and over again, I think every writer. I mean, some writers are cool. I think with just writing the same genre, but I my hope is that I have a variety, that I can show a lot of
Mhm.
range and get to keep doing different things. Like I want to do more horror. You'd mentioned Welderkin, and well, that's like one of the earliest things I did. I haven't really had a chance to do anything horror since then, and I feel like I have grown immensely as a writer since working on that. That's 6 years ago when we started writing that, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just I'd like to take another crack, and it's um I mean, don't get me wrong. I As much as I love cooking, if it is the thing I do for years and years, I'll probably be pretty happy. But I want to do adult stuff. I want to do or mature readers. I want to do horror. I want to do slice of life. Like I said, I'm pretty drawn to everything, and it's just the challenge of doing something new is very alluring.
Yeah, yeah. But that's on the reader side again, that's usually what fascinates me most is when people sort of expand and try new things constantly. And you can tell like there's a constant growth in the process. So looking forward to much more to come. And glad that Cooking with Monsters is out in the world. If I'm a listener out there and I want to follow along, find the book, find out more about you, kind of check things out as they develop, what are some places that I might want to go to kind of keep in touch and learn more?
So the best place is probably at this point my website, which is jordanalsaqa.com, just my name.com. So
Mhm,
that's
mhm.
on the screen. I am still on Twitter. How long are any of us still going to be on Twitter? Because it might be a pay site soon, and that I think will definitely be the end of it. But I'm on Twitter at Indigo Master. That's ENDIGOMASTER. I'm also on Blue Sky. I'm trying to figure out Instagram. Um, I never had it before, and it is a very different language. But yeah, I'm around. I think I have a very distinct name, fortunately. So really, all you have to do is
Yep,
Google me, and I pop
true,
right up. Um,
true.
and I post about my stuff. If I can talk about it, I'm probably rambling a little too much about my process and what I'm working on. But it's all out there.
But I always enjoy hearing about the process. I'm always glad to meet authors and creators. So thank you for jumping on and hope to talk again in the future as you're working on projects to come and the
Absolutely.
unfolding series and other things as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for having me. It's just nice to chat.
Yeah, yeah. Great to be in touch. Great to meet you and nice to chat as well.